This definitely isn't how I imagined spending the night of my 25th wedding anniversary. Alone, in the guest room, by choice. Tomorrow, Monday, CC, or DD, as she calls herself in her stories, will get the divorce papers along with the settlement offer I believe is more than fair. I hope she has the good sense to accept it. I don't want a nasty divorce, though honestly, part of me wants it to be the messiest divorce imaginable. I'd want the deceitful, cheating person she is to be thrown out with nothing but the clothes on her back. No, actually, I wish she'd be tossed out without even those in the dead of winter. But I'm better than that. Despite everything, I love my daughter, even if she's not mine by blood. My darling wife altered details in her stories to keep her identity hidden. For instance, her firstborn, Jenny, has dark hair and brown eyes, but I barely made it to the bathroom in time when I saw those DNA test results. Our second child, Brad Jr., does resemble me, with blonde hair and blue eyes. Both kids are adults now, with Jenny having recently had a son. My wife's first grandchild, my grandson, was named after me. But Jenny is my daughter. That's my grandson. I may not have fathered her, but I've always been her dad. So, I want this divorce to be civil for her sake. I don't want my daughter or her new family caught in any of this. As much as I despise CC with every fiber of my being, I'd rather suffer a critical engine failure in my Cessna than put my daughter through pain. This shows how deeply distressed I am right now. I'm a senior pilot with a major airline, a man who lives by logic and order. But my true goal is to finally expose the truth. I may not be a writer like my wife, damn her soul, but I am honest. And though I was cheated on and unknowingly raised another man's child, I wouldn't trade my world for the daughter who's always been my little girl. My dishonest wife never gave me a real choice in the matter. I've earned that right, and I don't deserve the slander she wrote in her stories. I'm not the man she painted me to be in them, but only God can forgive her for lying about me to everyone. Now, I believe that forgiveness is possible with God's help, but I don't know if I'll ever move past this betrayal. My name is Brad, though friends call me Bud. And my wife's lover, Jenny's biological father? His name is John, though she's hidden him under the name Job in her stories. She cleverly changed our names, and anyone who didn't know us well wouldn't have seen through it. But apparently, the ruse wasn't enough because I received countless anonymous copies of her work, some even linking me to it on an erotic story website. Finding out about your wife's infidelity or the fact that your eldest isn't yours is never easy, but finding out through a published story is far worse. It wasn't just knowing about her affair, but reading in detail about their sex life, how she described him as being better than me. It's hard to imagine CC having the courage to say any of this to my face, but she was fine with sharing it with the world. Since she posted it last week, it's been downloaded over 40,000 times, and I've received enough copies to know I've become a laughingstock in this town. We married young, and I worked all through high school. That was the only time CC, or Cindy Compton, her maiden name, ever held a job. DD was the name she used in her stories. Once Jenny was born, she became a stay-at-home mom. 5 years ago, she and our son graduated college together, he with a degree in petroleum engineering, her with an English degree. She didn't bother with a teaching certificate, so I wonder what sort of job she plans to find now. As far as I'm concerned, her gravy train is coming to a stop. Of course, she left out of her story that, while I was the boring, tired husband, I was working my fingers to the bone for our family. I took 20 hours of challenging engineering courses and served in the Air Force Reserves, on top of a 40-hour work week. She conveniently forgot to mention I turned down a place at the Air Force Academy because she didn't want to wait to get married. The summer she got pregnant, we'd only been married 7 months. And instead of the 2 weeks she claimed I was away, I'd actually been gone for 2 months training to qualify for flight school. I often wonder if it would have hurt less if her perfect affair had started after I left. Not before. I noticed the signs back then and was worried, but I loved her so deeply that I ignored them. She also never mentioned that I was as much a virgin as she was when we married. I couldn't compete with her lover's experience or how he brought her to heights. I apparently never did. She left out the fact that she always changed clothes behind a locked door, and we never made love with the lights on. The first time we were intimate, She openly discussed my shortcomings. The only time in our marriage she laughed during sex. It was no laughing matter to me, though. I'd unknowingly walked in as her clean-up guy. I wonder if she knows how much it disgusts me now, knowing she didn't find it too dirty to let me pleasure her with remnants of her affair still fresh. For the rest of our marriage, she needed a drink or two before she'd let me have any other sex with her. Were our lovemaking sessions short? Absolutely. She made it clear that sex was just a marital duty, and certainly not a pleasant one. For 25 years, she never showed true passion in bed. A lie she spread in her story too. I have never in my life felt genuinely welcomed when it came to intimacy with her, and that's yet another lie of hers. She even alluded to it in her story if you pay close attention. That first summer during my Air Force training, I'd been reading books on sex and spending time with other men in the program. When I returned home, she acted cold and uninterested, but I was still eager enough to ignore it. To imply in her story that I was a poor lover, well, I have to keep my composure. I'll simply say CC is one of those women who thinks sex is something dirty and only allows herself to act that way when she's being unfaithful. Do I need to explain how deeply painful it is realizing that my wife could bring herself to be passionate with another man but, even decades later, could never show that side to me? When I recall the many nights of sexual frustration I endured, I realized my cheating wife didn't paint an accurate picture of our sex life. Still, I loved her too much to cheat, even while overseas with the Air Force or later as a senior pilot for the airline. And if you think an airline captain doesn't have opportunities to cheat, then you must be on another planet. But I never did. You might wonder why, if I loved her so much, I'd go through with divorcing her over an affair that happened almost 25 years ago, especially when her first child, who isn't biologically mine, is someone I love more than anything. My faith compelled me to forgive her back then, and I never brought it up again. I even started hoping that maybe our sex life would finally evolve to where we'd be able to keep the lights on. I even entertained thoughts of renewing our vows on our anniversary, hoping it could be a fresh start. I thought I could encourage her to open up more sexually without letting her know the real reason I was growing more assertive. Equipped with insights from her story, I felt sure I could move past her sex is only for children mindset she'd carried through our marriage. I told myself that her cheating was far in the past and that, in the end, she chose me. Then I wondered, why had she chosen me? Was it because her lover was stuck in a dead-end job while I had a promising future? I tried convincing myself that her reasons for choosing me didn't matter, only that she did. But then I reread the end of her story and, for the third time in my life, I cried. I didn't even cry when my parents died. The only times I've cried were holding each of my children for the first time. But rereading the last part of her story broke me completely. In the end, she hadn't truly chosen me. She admitted that if I died, she'd find him to be his secret mistress, knowing she'd still have financial security from my passing. While that thought was painful, at least it implied she'd still honor her vows. But what broke me was reading that if his wife died, she would have left me for him. She respected his marriage more than our own. And suddenly, I realized I had never been her first choice. I mourned for all those lost years. That moment was the end. I realized I never wanted to touch her again. In my divorce petition, I stated she was never to contact me again. I wonder if she'll respect that. I hope so, because if she doesn't, I'm not sure I'll be able to hold back my anger and prevent myself from retaliating. If she dares to cry, "I love you, it was only sex," as cheating wives often do, I have some biting remarks ready, though for our children's sake, I hope I never have to say them. Once I stopped crying, I decided to track down her former lover. It didn't take much. I just contacted his first wife. She let me know that Joe was single after his third divorce, behind on child support, and not even worth the trouble of revenge. I wasn't surprised. A man who cheats as he does rarely changes. I tracked down his current address and even briefly thought of inviting him to our anniversary party, but I didn't want to ruin the celebration the kids had planned for us. Instead, I kept a recent photo his last ex had sent me and pinned it to our fridge. On the back, I jotted down his address and phone number. He's gained over 120 pounds, while I stay in shape for my work. I doubt she'll contact him, but who knows? The way she wrote about him showed some longing. If she did marry him, it would be sweet revenge, if not for the impact on my daughter. I considered countless ways to get back at this lying, cheating woman who broke my trust after 25 years together. There are dozens of ways I could make her regret it. I nearly ordered a fancy dress in her wedding size, funny, that old dress size. I almost wrote that CC still looked wonderful, but I stopped. I realized I'd been seeing her through the lens of my own love. She never lost the weight from her pregnancies. Her skin shows the effects of too much sunbathing. She's aged, heavy, and wrinkled now. But my faith teaches forgiveness, and I've decided I'm better than this. I'll turn the other cheek. Besides, evening the score would take 25 years, and I'd rather let her go her way as I go mine. I'll try to find what I believe every man deserves in marriage. A woman who truly loves him, who makes him her priority, and whose sexual fantasies include him. Knowing I could love a woman who looks just like CC does now gives me confidence that next time, I won't let my hormones dictate my choices. With God's help, I believe I'll forgive CC for her affair and even for the nearly 25 years of my life she wasted. But I will not give that lying, cheating woman another chance to take even one more day. Revenge may be tempting, but I believe the best revenge is a life well lived. Without this lying, cheating woman, I'm sure I'll find it.